Thanks for joining us again here on the Too Deep NFL podcast. With you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. We're down a man, Eric Eager. Not with us tonight. Eager called away on assignment. Of course, the VP of R&D for Sumer Sports. So we're without a man. And the other thing is my graphic doesn't fit without three of us. That's a problem, right? I will tell you that right now. That annoys me. Plus, that background doesn't need to be there. So there you go. A lot going on tonight in the NFL. We're going to get to basically who has had the best off season, right? That's what it is. Draft, free agency, who's had the best off season. We're going to break that down. First, though, Jeff, let's start with the fact that Tom Brady was roasted for 3 hours on Netflix. What was your takeaway?
Wow, we're not going to do the open this time. We're just going to jump right into it.
No, hang on. You're right. But we do need the open. Oh, wait. We're going to get
to pay for that.
That important questions people did. Very good. It's coming up next here on the Too Deep.
You're listening to the Too Deep Podcast, the most complete analysis of the National Football League, breaking down the NFL like no one else can. Too Deep is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Too Deep is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Too Deep Football Podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
Yes, as we covered, no Eric Eager tonight. He'll be back with us next week. And, of course, already down a man, which means Jeff and I have to do more, right? That's always fun. And then technical fun as well, right? Couldn't get any better than having little technical glitches as we're doing everything. Remember, if you're catching us via the podcast, you can catch us live, be a part of the stream, part of the conversation. Got a lot of people lining up to a chat there in the chat room. You can be a part of that conversation. About 9 o'clock Central Time every Tuesday is when we bring you the Too Deep podcast. And normally we kind of tease you, run the open, and then we start. Today we started and then ran the open, and now we'll keep with the start. Jeff, reminding me of what I was sitting there going, I know there's something I'm supposed to be doing here. What is it I'm supposed to be doing?
Sure.
It's the open. Thanks to our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Great people. They're great folks. They do a fantastic job at their parking lot, and we appreciate their great support. Find them online, GannAsphalt.com. GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot. Little extra love for our good friends at Gann because I messed up the open. All right, now let's get to Tom Brady. Roasted for 3 hours. Jeff, your reaction. What do we take away from that?
Well, it took me like 3 days to watch the thing because it was so long. 3 hours for anybody to get roasted is astonishingly a long time. But, it was – I was surprised he did it, just knowing him and knowing his personality. But it was funny for most of it. Some of it was a little bit cringy.
Right.
I thought there were too many people involved in the roast. I mean, it didn't have to be a Patriots family reunion out there. But look, I obviously Kevin Hart's funny. Nikki Glazer was good. The professionals were all good. I thought Edelman was pretty good when he got up there. I thought Drew Bledsoe was surprisingly funny to lead it off.
Yeah.
And, I think the whole thing with Brady getting upset about the Robert Kraft line about the massage was a little bit overblown. But I think overall it worked. I mean, he probably made a ton of money out of it. And the only thing I'll say about that, I told my girlfriend, I said, do you think he's getting a little bit paranoid about somebody else being talked about as the greatest of all time already? This whole thing. I think I heard the greatest of all time 200 times throughout the entire broadcast. I'm like, we get it. We get it.
So you think maybe some of the inspiration was, hey, don't forget about me, guys. I know Patrick Mahomes, the new flavor, but don't forget about me.
Yeah, I think there's some relevance to it. Yeah, this is a competitive guy. I'm sure he liked sitting there. Of all things he heard that he liked was probably the greatest of all time, over and over and over again.
For sure. I think absolutely. Listen, it for me, I still haven't finished it, to be honest with you. A couple of things that jumped at me were, one, just pros, their timing, they're pros.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm with you. But Peyton Manning is the best of the. He's legitimately funny. Yeah. Right. Is that, like, did you get a sense like he actually, fit as like a jokester?
Prepared for it. Yeah. Well, compared to Ben Affleck, who he followed, who was horrible.
Yes.
Like I was just like, I don't know what Ben Affleck's talking about up there. But yeah, I thought Peyton Manning has really turned into quite the comedian, quite the performer. His timing was really good, which is a big part of what roasts are. You got to really keep it going, keep it moving. I will say this too. It felt like it was more the Rob Gronkowski roast than it was the Tom Brady roast.
Right. He got
there was way more Gronk jokes in there. Really good Gronk jokes, but it was just like, man, it's like, is Tom Brady already off the menu? We're just jumping right into Gronk here.
Yeah, trust me. That was amazing. And you know what I thought was interesting? We had on, and I'm going to draw a blank, so I won't even try. But one of our guys in Boston that we do for the 2-minute drill every Monday and Friday on my radio show, the program, we hit 3 to 5 towns for like 5 minutes each about what's going on in that town. And we hit Boston. I said, what was the reaction in Boston? And they said, well, it was the closure that everyone in the Patriot family needed.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what it was for them. It was like, look, we all still love each other. Here it is. Like they needed that moment. Like, what did you think was most cringy?
Oh, I'd probably say some of the Aaron Hernandez jokes were a little cringy.
Yes.
I mean, I think that was way too soon to go there. And maybe you just can't go there at all in a roast. I didn't have a problem with the Bob Kraft stuff. I thought this wasn't cringy stuff, but it was hard to watch. Belichick was just so bad on the prompter. Like his timing, just kind of like just going through it, listening to him was a little bit rough. But Julian Edelman, I think Brady had some lines about Julian Edelman, like going through his stuff and doing stuff in his guest rooms and things like that. It got a little bit too insider-ish, but yeah, I mean, it was just, and I heard a story or a review that said that the reason Jeff Ross wasn't running it, who usually does these kind of things for a living, they picked Kevin Hart, was because they thought Kevin Hart was the bigger name and would attract more people to it. But it felt like as Kevin Hart got deeper into it, he just got more and more drunk. Yes. It was just kind of like, what are we doing here? But I was shocked that they sold that place out, or they had the crowd. I don't know what, I think they had 10,000 people in there, 10,000 people. And the people who were sitting in the front row, the Jim Harbaughs and the Woodsons would be there, but Dana Whites and people like that. I was shocked that they had that many people show up for it. Yeah,
I was too. And Beery Mister, Eli knocked it out of the park with his tweet. Casey Flatlander, Eli won the internet. Yeah. Did you see his tweet?
It was great.
It said, if anybody didn't, it said, I was going to go to the roast of Tom Brady, but I didn't think I needed to roast him a third time.
Yeah. You think the Belichick Bob Kraft deal was a little bit awkward?
That's where I was going to go. I'm glad you brought that up because you got away from it. That was the cringiest for me. The shots.
Yeah.
Oh, we're all good. We're taking shots together. Awkward.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I thought it was terrible. Because I don't think not for 1 second do I think Bill Belichick wants to throw his arm around Bob Kraft.
No. He didn't take the shot. He just kind of held it right here and just kind of put it down when he was done with it. It was just like, that was weird. That was the strangest part of the evening.
Yeah, that was that was tough to deal with. But anyway, do you think we'll have another one of these? I guess the next one when Patrick Mahomes retires.
It depends on what his career is like and how it evolves. I think Brady is such an easy target. Like Mahomes is just way more relatable. And again, I like Tom. I've known Tom for a long time. I have a lot of respect for him. But I think what made that probably more attractive than Netflix was just the fact that he was so buttoned down and robotic throughout the course of his career. And so when you see that kind of stuff going around, even Belichick and Kraft, all those guys being involved in it, it was just the anti-Patriot stuff. Whereas I don't know if you could get that many ex-Chiefs in a room together and go after Mahomes in that way and have the same kind of reaction. It's just all the that was the one line Belichick had that I liked was, butting heads with Brady. Hard to do it when his head's so far up Alex Guerrero's ass. That was a good line.
We are proudly brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer, helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lots. All right, we want to get to who has won the offseason for each one of the divisions. We're going to break down each division and give you our division winner for each one. Our winner for each division. So I thought we'd go, AFC East, North, South, West, NFC East, North, South, West. Does that work?
Yep.
All right, let's start with the AFC East. Who are you going with?
I've got the Jets, Jets. And I know that people are probably tired of hearing about Aaron Rodgers and this team after the way the last season went. But they hit a lot of home runs, this offseason. And clearly the Buffalo Bills couldn't do a whole lot. The Patriots are a mess. The Dolphins a little bit hamstrung by their situation and having to pay Tua. So they were certainly the most active and had to be. I thought they really upgraded the offensive line, going out and getting Morgan Moses and John Simpson, Tyron Smith, in the offseason. But then you go and you draft Ole Fashanu. You go out and you get Malachi Corley, who I think is a pretty good receiver to add to the mix. You get a running back from Wisconsin, Braylon Allen. You get a backup quarterback and Jordan Travis, who I like. I think having Tyrod Taylor there is a huge benefit. I thought that everything that they didn't have last year when things were going off the rails, they found a way to get. And so, granted, health plays a lot in this right now. You've got to have Tyron Smith stay healthy. Mike Williams, big pickup, has to stay healthy. But I think overall, I give them an A for what they've done this offseason.
Yeah, and I'm on the Jets as well. And listen, I don't particularly like the Jets. I definitely don't like them dominating the national media all the time the way they did last year. Maybe a lesson will be learned with how it ended up. But number one at 11, getting a tackle was huge.
Yep.
Right? They invested in offensive linemen, and then they doubled down the offensive linemen. And getting Fashanu from Penn State, I think, is a legit left tackle that could step in. It allows, Smith to play either side, but definitely gives them depth. And if they don't think Fashanu's ready right away, which most people think he is a plug and play at left tackle, they've got Smith. They've got veteran presence on that offensive line. But then they kept with the theme like, hey, the defense is great, and we can't win like that.
Yep.
We have to keep the quarterback upright, and we have to give him weapons. They went to Malachi Corley for wide receiver. Also, at pick 65, they took a running back and Braylon Allen to double down and keep giving weapons to the quarterback. I think that's important, but overall, they're going to protect him.
Yep.
And I think, defenses are great, but you have to be able to score, and you have to be able to score in 2 minutes.
Yep.
And you can't do that if the quarterback's running for his life. And so I really wanted to find – the Dolphins have just lost too much.
Yep.
They took on a lot of water. I don't know about this, Jeff. I know we talked about doing the losers, but when you reviewed it, were you stunned at how little the Patriots accomplished?
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, you're looking at they re-signed some guys that were already there, but it wasn't like they really went out and had a ton of money to work with too, right? So they could have gone out and done a lot of things and just I think they drafted okay, but I thought in terms of the offseason that they certainly have waved the white flag already. Waved the red flag or the white towel on this season already.
I I actually had the Bills second best.
Yeah.
And it's not because I think the
Quietly.
Bills got better. It's because I think the Bills did what they needed to do.
Yep.
Right? They cut bait on Stephon Diggs. That's addition by subtraction.
Yep.
But they finally aided on some contracts. They admitted, listen, our all-in quarterback rookie contract window is over. We have to play the long game. And I think they did a pretty good job of it. So, listen, I don't love their second-round pick overall, the kid from Florida State.
Deion Coleman.
Yeah, but I do think that I think they had the second best one out of this bunch. All right, let's move on. AFC North. Where are you going with the AFC North?
I'm going Steelers. I feel like they had one of the top 3 drafts in the entire league because everybody I talk to says Troy Fautanu, and Zach Frazier are 2 of the nastiest offensive linemen in this draft. They have to get back to old Steeler football, which is being physical up front in both sides of the line. I think those 2 guys helped them with that. Roman Wilson is a receiver I've watched at Michigan, obviously, for a long time, who I thought was really a great steal as a third-round pick, could have easily been a second-round player. They getting rid of Deontay Johnson and bringing this guy in makes their offense a lot more mature real fast. So I love what he brings to the table. And then you talk about what they got in the offseason. I mean, I think you keep your fingers crossed that somewhere they find a quarterback in Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, but they played it smart. They got very affordable options to try to solve a problem that's a huge issue for them. If either one of these guys can do something for them or the combination of them, they're going to be in a much better place. I think Patrick Queen, people kind of rip him for what he was before the last couple of years in Baltimore, but I think he's a pretty decent player for what they do in Pittsburgh. So I like everything they've done this offseason.
Ditto, 100%. I concur wholeheartedly. I like the Queen edition for them. I love their draft. I love Roman Wilson. Every time they showed a J.J. McCarthy highlight, there were a couple passes to the tight end. Everything else was to Roman Wilson. They had one where it's a tip ball in the championship game, and he adjusts and goes up and gets it. I love Roman Wilson. I think that he's got Hines Ward written all over him. Right? And so I thought that was great. They solidified the offensive line. I think they're going to get back. They didn't give money to Najee Harris, which I think is one of the more underrated things because I think that's in their MO, keep paying the running back, and they're coming around to, listen, we got to turn and burn the running back just like everybody else and spend on the other spots. And they invested in QB. And I think Russell Wilson played better than he deserved the attitude from Sean Payton. I think he'll be better here in a run-first approach. I think you'll see him running the ball more. And I do like that they double down with Fields. And now if Wilson goes down, they've got a good backup. And they've had problems with quarterbacks going down. I think it was a great offseason for the Steelers. Great. Total agreement.
The third-round pick, too, Peyton Wilson, would have been a first-round talent. He didn't have the injury history he had. So that if he stays healthy, they may have gotten to steal the draft on the defensive side.
I agree. In fact, wasn't he the guy that had no ligament?
Yeah, and the ACL.
Yeah, no ACL.
ACL.
Yeah, but he's been playing without it. So, in fact, they said no shock they took him. James Harrison played without one.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I know Hines did.
They listed who did?
Hines Ward.
They listed several guys, and I remember James Harrison was one of them. Mm-hmm. So, they've had success with it. All right, let's go to the AFC South. Where are you going?
I'm going with the Colts. And again, their free agency wasn't sexy, but they did the things they had to do. They kept Michael Pittman in-house. They re-signed Kenny Moore, re-signed Zaire Franklin. You bring in Joe Flacco as a backup quarterback, and he showed a lot of life at the end of last season with the Browns. So I like him being there with the way Anthony Richardson was a little fragile last year and didn't finish the season. But then they're drafted. They got the first defensive player, a guy who I thought wasn't going to be that. I thought he was the second best edge, but Leatu Latu is, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
These names are killing me this year in the draft, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. But I think he's a really talented player. I love the second-round pick with Adonai Mitchell, who I thought would have been a first-round guy I thought the Chiefs would look at, a big, long receiver with speed. And so now you've added a lot more speed to this offense, which needed it. In fact, the guy they took in the 5th round, who was also a speed guy, I'm trying to look at my notes here. I can't remember who he was. Anthony Gould is also a guy who's got a lot of speed to him. So, and a kid from Missouri, the safety from Missouri, Jalen Carley's, I like a lot. So I thought they had a pretty good mix of players they picked up in the offseason that should help this team a lot.
I like this. Jeff speaking in tongues tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Trust me. I'm going to have to go put my tongue on ice.
I love it. Hey, shout out to the Polynesian football community.
Yeah.
You're making your presence felt.
Hey, bro, I've never seen so many Samoan names in my life in one draft list. Man.
It's huge. This is where we'll break. We'll split here because I'm going Jacksonville. Because part of me is like, don't spend bad money. And Jacksonville's been in the spend mode for a couple of years since Doug Peterson got there, trying to turn things around. But when you walk on Calvin Ridley, because one of the teams in your division is going to give Calvin Ridley $92 million. I assume they were in the bidding to drive that number up. That is insane.
Yep.
Insane to be giving $23 million per for Calvin Ridley. They let the Tennessee Titans do that. So for me, sometimes the move you make in the offseason is the one that you don't make, right? The best move you can make is the one you don't make. They didn't make that one. Look, I don't love Gabe Davis to be a star, but he is only 25 years old, 24.9 years old when they signed him. So there's still a lot of good football there if he can be healthy. He looks the part. Let Doug Peterson, let his offensive mind go to work. I like Eric Armstead coming in. I think they solidified spots. I think they're close, and they targeted spots where they needed help, and they made a really good decision to avoid a massive fat contract that would just weigh on him. And then I love the Brian Thomas pick. Like Trevor Lawrence, you got to give him money. They're going to have to pay him this year. Right. And so before training camp, he's probably going to get a contract. And I don't know about you, but I can't wait to see what he gets. Is he going to be up there? Are they going to go Dak Prescott and pay him up at the Patrick Mahomes level because he's the next guy up? Or are we going to finally start seeing the middle class? You know, the Baker Mayfield 3 for 100. Is he going to come in at 42, 45, 48, something south of the top end? I'm really intrigued by that.
Yeah. Tough negotiation for sure.
Yeah. But once you do sign him, you want him to succeed, and he needs help. And they sign a wideout to make up for losing, Ridley, but then they also draft Brian Thomas. And I know you loved him. Yep. I think it's one of the steals.
Yep, I agree.
One of the steals of the draft.
I agree with you.
I think that one's a great one. I also think they got good defensive tackles from LSU, so they got some depth along the defensive line. I think Jacksonville had a really good offseason. All right, let's move forward. We'll go to the AFC West. Who won it there?
This is the one that everybody's going to hate me for. It ain't the Kansas City Chiefs. It's the L.A. Chargers. And the first big thing they did in the offseason was hire Jim Harbaugh.
Yep.
So they got the coach right. They finally figured out, let's get a real coach in who knows how to win games, a proven winner, who's taken a team to a championship on the college level, who's played for a championship on the NFL level. I thought it was the best hire they've made in that organization. God, you have to go back to who would be even close? Don Coryell?
Marty Schottenheimer, maybe.
Yeah, okay, Marty.
Championship game.
Marty. So he fell out with A.J. Smith.
Listen, I got your back 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs had a fine and somewhat surprising offseason. I think they did really well in the draft, and they're probably second on the list for me. But the Chargers, you hit it. I'm a Harbaugh fan. I think he's going to be outstanding. Like he's going to change the personality. I love that he went and grabbed another offensive tackle.
Yep. He's
got his Fisher and Schwartz. He's got his bookends, which is an Andy Reid thing. He did it in Philadelphia. You know, his quarterback's not quite as good, so let's give him better protection than the quarterback who's better. And let's knock some people down and let's run the ball. Then he got rid of two oft-injured wide receivers. Didn't pay the freight on Keenan Allen and Williams. I think those are smart moves in your first year. I don't mind the Jets grabbing Williams, right? Yeah. I don't mind the Bears grabbing. It was Bears, right? Who grabbed Keenan Allen?
Bears, they traded for him,
Yeah. I don't mind them making that move because of where they are. But you only get one first year as a head coach. Only 1 year where you can do whatever you want and nobody can bitch about it. Only 1 year to reset the culture. And I think you're going to see this now with what's going on in Denver. And now you've already, pissed in some Cheerios and guys are still around. I don't think it's going to go well. No. Jim Harbaugh came in and said, these guys are out, these guys are in, and now we're going forward. I think that'll be a huge hit for them. They're going to play more physical.
Yep.
I mean, when you look at what Austin Eckler got, $8 million over 2 years.
Yep.
But that's not who he wants to be.
Yep.
Right? He wants to be something else. And I love Austin Eckler, but he's not healthy either.
No.
And Harbaugh's changing the culture. The Chargers, will they Charger? I don't think so.
No,
I don't think they'll Charger. Will they win the division? Not yet. Will they make the playoffs? Maybe. 10-7, 11-6. I think it's certainly within their grasp. But are they going to be a real threat? And will Jim Harbaugh win a division title in the AFC West? Yes, he will.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Look at Ladd McConkey, Junior Colson.
Love those.
Gus Edwards. I mean, if J.K. Dobbins stays healthy, which is a big if, I mean, what I love is that their identity is being established quickly. This is who we're going to be. We're not worried about, like you said, having all these big stars. We want guys who are going to buy in, who are going to beat some ass. They want guys who are physical football players. And I love it.
I won't say if you want to beat some parking lot ass, call again asphalt and concrete, but I will say if you want to avoid costly delays like liability problems in your parking lot, get a brightly striped lot from Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They'll stripe it. Concrete bumpers, proper signage are things that make your parking lot so much more accessible and keep you away from liability issues with bumper cars and accidents going on in your lot. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've been making them disappear since 1994. Whether you're starting new with a brand new lot or just fixing the one you got, Gann Asphalt and Concrete's been the best for 30 years. Don't wait. Go right now. GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lots. All right, Jeff, to the NFC. Let's start with the NFC East. Where are you going?
Philly. And once again, Howie Roseman is defied gravity here because you look at what this team has done the last 2-3 years in the offseason. They've obviously had some great acquisitions, a lot of drama last year, a lot of issues on defense. And it looks like you look at what they have on paper now, that they will once again be a Super Bowl contender and a real championship threat because you go out, you get Saquon Barkley. I know that people were complaining about there's too much money to pay a guy. I think he's a great weapon for what they want to do offensively. You bring in Bryce Huff as an edge rusher and you get rid of Hassan Reddick, who wants more money. I think that's a good move. You bring back CJ Gardner-Johnson in your secondary, who they missed a lot at safety. And then you go in the draft and you get arguably the two best corners available, in Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. It's just the rich get richer, right? I think that's what we see happening here. And there's still some other guys down the list they picked up, like Will Shipley and the Jalix Hunt, the edge rusher. I mean, they've improved their team a lot in the last 3 months.
I also am a fan of Jeremiah Trotter.
Yeah.
I thought he was a fine player. I like Shipley as well. And what I love about them getting a couple of corners up top, they weren't reaches.
Yep.
Right. Everyone really needed that. And when guys on other teams are pissed that the board falls right into the Eagles' lap.
Yep.
That everyone recognizes that's exactly what they needed. And young corners are what make the world go round.
Yep.
Right? Not old guys. They figured that out. They fixed it. I think it was a really, really good. We'll see what the chemistry is. I also like the signing of both wideouts because I think their quarterback needs weapon. I like Jalen Hurts, but I don't want to see Jalen Hurts try to do what Patrick Mahomes did a couple of years ago, and that's win a Super Bowl with pedestrian wideouts. I think Hurts needs weapons. They recognize that. They signed them. There may be a bloodletting on the cap in a couple of years, but this team needs to win now.
But they're fine with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're fine with it. And I think that they've created a whole new way of doing business, which is to say, we'll spend money and we'll come back 3 years later and we'll reevaluate and we'll spend money again.
Okay. NFC North, did you dare go to your own Detroit Lions?
I could not. They had a good offseason, but not as good as the Chicago Bears. And I think, look, we all know it's hard to screw up what the Bears had to work with, but first you had to let go of Justin Fields. And I think that was a harder decision to make because he's a likable guy who has done the right things in an organization. He was popular within the city, but they got rid of him. They drafted Caleb Williams first overall. They got Roma Dunze, which I thought was the right play to make instead of going offensive tackle or edge rusher. So they got another playmaker for him. And then you look at what they've done as far as helping Caleb Williams out, you sign DeAndre Swift, you trade for Keenan Allen, you bring in Gerald Everett, you add all these things to help make his life easier. Look, Ryan Poles watched what happened with Patrick Mahomes when he got to Kansas City and why it worked, because they said, let's make it easy for him. The kid has talent. Let's make it easy for him. They've made it so easy for Caleb Williams that I'm buying in. I say the Bears are a playoff team now.
Well, they're a playoff team if Caleb Williams is the real deal.
Yeah.
But cold weather, I'm interested to see how that works. Season going later and later and later, more cold weather games. A coach and a GM, I think the GM's in better shape, but the coach, if they don't get off to a good start, we're talking about a young quarterback, what's the chemistry? What's the atmosphere get like around there? I think that's going to be interesting to watch. I almost went with the Bears, but I thought it was like, how do you screw that up?
Yeah.
Right? I thought the Lions were, when they didn't, by the way, and I'm with you. I don't love Keenan Allen, but I understand why they did it for all the reasons you did, so I don't mind it. But for me, I think it's the Detroit Lions. I like what they were able to get done. I like that they re-signed two of their core guys, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell, to protect the quarterback and give him a weapon. And I thought they too, Carlton Davis coming over, I thought was a big get for them. I thought they did a really nice job of filling in their holes. And I think kind of just like, with the Eagles, the draft kind of fell to them. And they did a nice job in getting need spots, going corner. And again, I don't think they reached.
Yep.
I thought they got good guys. Terry and Arnold was a guy some people had going at 15.
Yep.
Rakestraw, some people had going to the bottom of the first round. They got him at 24 and 61. So I like what they did. They invested in the O-line as well. I think the Lions are still the team to beat. I know you didn't have the Bears winning it.
No.
The Packers coming on, the Packers didn't get much done.
Yeah.
Packers kind of shuffled chairs.
Yeah, free agency they did pretty well with Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney, some of those guys. But you know what? That division, though, is the best division of football now.
But Josh Jacobs will be healthier than Aaron Jones. But when Aaron Jones is healthy, is Josh Jacobs better?
Depends on what you like, what you want.
To me, you re-sign one running back, like draft a guy.
Mm-hmm.
What are you spending all this money on running back? Get more wideouts for your quarterback. That's why I didn't like what the Packers were doing. All right, let's move on to the NFC South. Where'd you go there?
You know what? The Buccaneers, I feel like this was a great offseason for their general manager, Jason Light, because he was up against it with some tough negotiations. He had to find a way to keep Mike Williams happy and in town. Mike Evans happy and in town. He did that. He had to find a good number to pay Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield was already willing to stay, so they found a way to keep him at that mid-tier level and keep a quarterback who, proved he can still play at a pretty good level. So I like that move. He's put the franchise on Antoine Winfield to get a deal done there. And then obviously you bring back Levante David, who's been there for forever and is still a leader on that team. But again, you add that with their draft, which again, not a sexy draft, but Graham Barton was a very good center out of Duke. Chris Braswell's an underrated edge rusher out of Alabama. And then the third-round pick, Jalen McMillan from Washington, I thought was, again, one of those players who could have easily been taken a lot higher because he was productive and he's explosive. He has a lot of things you like in a receiver. So you've helped your quarterback, you've kept your core players together, and you're in a division that's still very much winnable for you.
I almost went Bucks. I instead went Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with you.
I almost went there until they drafted Michael Penix.
Well, and we talked about that a little bit. Yeah. Let me first say that I love, one of my favorite things was the 3 for $100 for Baker Mayfield. Yeah. It's a lot of money, but not really in quarterback terms.
No.
And you've got a team that knows what they got and a quarterback that knows what he's got.
Yep. And
so I do love that. And that was, I really wanted to do that. So I'm glad you brought him up so we could mention that contract, because it's a quarterback middle class, which there should be, and they should be paid like that. And that's what Baker Mayfield is. I went with the Falcons because I think Kirk Cousins is better. And I see this contract really as a 2-year, $90 million deal. Can be a 3-year deal, but you can get out for $25 million. which on a post-June 1 cut after 2 years is 12.5 and 12.5, which isn't even that much today.
Yeah.
We see that all the time. It's certainly not $90 million, right? So the Cousins deal is better than I think people realize. And while I don't love the player, I don't dislike the player. I love watching Penix. I love his production at Washington. I love his leadership. You know my thing. It looks funny, but I'm not a quarterback guru. And so if they believe in him, let's see what they can do with him. And I do not hate investing in the quarterback spot 2 times over. I don't think what they did was that different. Trading for Alex Smith, signing Chase Daniel. That was the first thing that Andy Reid did when he got to Kansas City. And later on, when he had Alex Smith, he drafted Patrick Mahomes. In some ways, this is a lot of what you mentioned, the Bears going the Chiefs route.
Yeah.
That's going the Chiefs route and saying, we have to get better at quarterback. Enough of Desmond Ridder. And then the fact that they traded Desmond Ridder for Rondell Moore, which I think is an underrated trade because I think he's a playmaker. He's not going to have to come over and be a number 1 wideout like Arizona wanted him to be.
Well,
But he can come over and just be a playmaker, a McCole Hardman type.
well.
They get Darnell Mooney. They gave weapons to the quarterback positions, and they've already got talented weapons to begin with. I think Atlanta did better than people realize, and I know I'm in the minority, but I get what they're thinking at the quarterback spot.
Oh, I get it too. I just don't know if you're going to know if it's a success until whatever 2027 or 28. Yeah.
Well, and I also do wonder, does Kirk Cousins show up on Tuesdays now that someone's breathing down his back? Right? They're not taking his crap. They're not being held hostage to his fully guaranteed deal. They didn't give him that.
Yeah.
And they're not worrying about whether or not he cares what he thinks about bringing in a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's still getting $90 million of the $100 million if he's cut. So it's close enough to being fully guaranteed. But I hear what you're saying. Look, it's at this point, I'm willing to let it play out. I would have picked them again if they did not make that move with Penix. Otherwise, I like what they did this offseason.
Yeah, if they grab something else, tackle something that helps out. I hear you, but I'll stick with them. All right, NFC West, where are you going?
I'm going with the Rams. And it wasn't that long ago that we were saying this team is going to be doomed to the basement of the NFC West for the next 10 years after going all in and winning that championship. And
no doubt.
Look at where they are now. I mean, they went out and, they really fortified the offensive line. They picked up Kevin Dotson and Jonah Jackson from Detroit, 2 stout guards. You got an old quarterback. Got to keep people off of them. You got a really good young running back that you want to get the run game going with. So I love those moves. I love bringing back Darius Williams to play corner for them. He was in Jacksonville, but he was there when they won their championship. And then having Jimmy Garoppolo there as a backup quarterback is a smart move because Stafford's been banged up a lot over the last few years. So you got somebody who you've gone up against, who can win games for you in a pinch. And I think it makes sense. But then you look at their draft and a couple guys out of Florida State and Jared First, Brandon Fisk, a couple of defensive linemen. I love the Blake Corum pick up, another running back to help your backfield. I think they're making a lot of smart moves. And this team was built into a championship team. I know people see the Von Miller and Odell Beckham stuff when they won the championship, the Matthew Stafford trade, but that team won a championship because they had a lot of mid-round smart draft picks that were made that built their foundation. They're getting back to that again.
Well, I'm 100% with you. 4 6th-round picks, 2 3rd-round picks, in addition to a 5th, a 7th, a 1st, and a 2nd.
Yep.
That's what they do well.
Yep.
Right? Puka Nacua.
See, you got your own problem with these names.
All right. I have many of them. Yes. They have success. They throw darts at that. And you're right. I give the Rams bad props because I said, well, it's going to be a cold, frosty winter for them when they have to pay the check on everything they've done. And they're not.
No.
And so it's forced me to come back and say, okay, how did they do it? One of the ways was they didn't pay 1st-round picks.
Yep.
Right? They traded them away. But they have managed to kind of cycle through the cap. And I'm with you. They're going to keep the quarterback upright. They invest guards to now keep the offensive line, which was much better this year. And we saw how much important that was. And they didn't just say, we're good. They reinvested in that. They drafted defense up front to get after the quarterback. They knew they were losing Aaron Donald, so they went after that. I think that was a good move for them. And more defense later on. Brennan Jackson from Washington State, Tyler Davis, D-tackle from Clemson. They kept at it. But, and Tre'Davious White.
Yeah,
I love on a one-year
deal.
Yeah. 3 years guaranteed money? No.
Yep.
1 year, $10 million? Love it. Incentive for the player. I think the Rams are proving to be, maybe they got a little big for their britches. Man, they didn't crash and burn like we thought they were.
Oh.
And I think they're scary. And I think the Niners had a better offseason than people think.
Yep.
They backed up. They had to let go of a lot of contracts, but they did it.
Yep.
I still think they're top heavy. So I think theirs was better than others. But Cardinals, come on. They cardinaled. Seahawks, I was surprised at the Seahawks. Didn't you think you'd see more when you dug into the Seahawks?
Yeah, but I think that they're so skill heavy right now. I mean, you look at their skills positions, whether it's receiver, they got they got DK Metcalf, they got Tyler Lockett, they've got Jackson Smith and Jigba. At running back, they got Kenneth Walker. They've got DBs, they've got everything. Their offensive and defensive line needed more help. That's where they spent their money. They had to get better at linebacker. They're trying to be trying to improve the defense. They couldn't. Pete Carroll got fired because the defense was going south. Mike McDonald's there to make it better. So I'm not surprised. Their moves weren't sexy, but I think that they were smart moves for them.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So Rams impressive and teaching a lot of people, myself for sure, there's a different way to do it. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Thanks again to Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Make sure you support our great sponsors. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. They've been solving parking lot problems for 30 years. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. And, of course, our buddy Eric Eager out on assignment. He'll be back next week. We look forward to talking to Eric at that point. So, for Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the 2 Deep NFL Podcast.